Baki Hanma is an 18-year-old high school martial artist with daddy issues that are more complex than quantum physics. His father, Yujiro Hanma, the indisputable strongest man on Earth, wanted his son to become like him, and that drove Baki's mom, Imi, crazy, who put her son through hellish training to fulfill her husband's desires. But when the 15-year-old Baki challenged Yujiro, he lost badly, and his mom's love finally awoke as she made the ultimate sacrifice by giving her life trying to save him from her husband. That moment completely changed Baki, and he dedicated his life to be strong enough to avenge his mom by beating his dad, and for that, he has already faced and defeated some of the greatest fighters in the world. Now he is the strongest high schooler in the world, who wants to defeat his dad, but also respects him for his great strength. However, this time his opponent is going to be someone nobody could have expected to fight. One day, as Baki finishes his daily exercise, Captain Stridum, a war hero and close associate of Yujiro, comes to tell him that the strongest creature in the history of the Earth had been recently discovered. He was a primitive man, a true alpha male who was found preserved in rock salt, hunting a T-Rex, and the miners who found him wet their pants and took him to Dollar Store Einstein, who could not help but try to revive the perfectly preserved man, who was named Pickle for shits and giggles, I guess. The scientists tried to revive him, but were unable to do so. One evening, however, one of the scientists decided to have a snack of T-Rex steak, which resulted in Pickle's getting up, and he followed its scent to find Thescientist, who was terrified of the beast. The scientist took out his gun from the drawer and shot a warning shot at Pickle's feet, who jumped and appeared behind him only to be shot in the gut, but 3 9mm shots could do nothing against the abs of a Jurassic-era human. Instead, he was enraged at the slight bleeding and threw the bullets so hard at the scientist that he shot him through the shoulder. The scientist ran away towards the T-Rex storage and trapped the primitive man inside, and then called the police for backup immediately. Fake Einstein, however, claimed that they need as many men against this monster as possible and immediately requested for military backup. The police chief realized Einstein was right when Pickle broke the thick concrete wall next to them and came out enraged. He rushed towards the police car and tossed it into another one before trashing the entire police force. The military was called, and they decided to test the latest mechanical armor against Pickle. As the soldier driving it took it towards Pickle, he charged at it and stopped it with equal force. The mecha soldier turned on the drill hand, but with one punch, the caveman destroyed its RPG-proof armor, terrifying the man inside. He decided to go for the caveman's neck to save himself. He was furious, and the military realized that they could not deal with him, so they called in tanks and helicopters, but the only thing that stopped Pickle was Stridum, who knew how the caveman was feeling. He threw away his clothes and sat before Pickle, who somehow understood his gesture and believed that he meant no harm. Captain Stridum then promised to take him to Japan, where there were modern beasts like himself. Stridum shows Baki the news about Pickle coming to Japan, and on seeing him in the live broadcast, the boy begins sweating because he has realized that the caveman was too strong. He is being kept in a secured facility, and the strongest warriors in the world are drawn to him like moths to a fire. One of them is the second greatest kung fu master from China who once saved Baki's life, Retsukayo, who sneaks in over the electric fence and then follows a guard on patrol duty like a shadow. He sneaks into the facility to find that the gate is already open and a weird karate master is already there. But they are both shocked that Doppo Orochi, the greatest karate master in the world, was there even before them and was hiding in the dinosaur statue the whole time. From the water tank comes Jack Hanma, Becky's brother from another mother, who took drugs and surgeries to become stronger as he shares the same daddy issues as his half-brother. Another man breaks the wall of the enclosure, and it is Katsumi, Doppo's adopted son, who is a genius but still a wannabe who thinks he is in the warrior club. There is also Goki Shibukawa, a tiny Aikido master, and Jaku, a kung fu master and preacher, among them. They are all here to get a taste of Pickle, but he is sleeping peacefully, and Jack kicks his nest to wake him up. The caveman wakes up only for a midnight toilet break and lets out enough water to save a burning building. While everyone had to sneak in, Yujiro walked straight to the gate, and his aura was so intense that he made the guards fight amongst themselves so that he did not beat them. After stopping them, he cut the lock with a karate chop and walked into the secured facility like he owned it. He welcomes Pickle to the future, and as Katsumi taunts him, Yujiro says that no one likes to be around him, not even his dad, and like any insecure man, he tries attacking his opponent. Yujiro blocks his pathetic punch and dodges his kick, and in that short moment he takes out the laces from his shoes, showing that he is faster than the Flash. He throws the laces at the wannabe's face, and then enters the enclosure without a key just by walking into the bulletproof glass and breaking it using the pressure of his face. For a moment, his face reminded me of my ex without makeup. He greets Pickle with a fist bump, and as soon as Pickle touches him, he sees a T-Rex with its jaws open in Yujiro. Pickle smiles as he tries to push him back, but Yujiro flips him over, and as the caveman gets up, the military commander in charge of the area announces for Yujiro to come out, and he acts like a fan before begging him to leave Pickle alone as he was a cultural treasure for the entire Earth. Yujiro likes people who know their place and agrees to leave along with the other fighters in the room, and they are dropped off at some distance. But as he is left alone, Pickle can only think about how Yujiro flipped him over, and none of his past enemies could do that, which makes him curious and happy. Baki is the only strong guy who does not plan to fight against Pickle, because he does not have the urge to prove himself to be the strongest. But then he goes to Retsu's demonstration, where he shows his students his precision by breaking only the blocks he is told to break when they are all placed side by side. Baki claps for him, and then he requests that Retsu teach him Kung Fu, but he refuses, saying that he is no longer interested in him or anyone else, as he has been infatuated with Pickle ever since he saw him on the news and thinks of fighting him every waking moment. Meanwhile, Pickle is in the arena run by Takugawa, who is the respected organizer of the biggest and fiercest fighting tournaments in the world. Fake Einstein and Stridum brought Pickle here because he had not eaten anything in a month, and because of his pride as a warrior, he would not eat anything that did not put up a fight. They brought violent bulls, bears, and lions to fight him, but every creature ran away, so they brought out a giant Siberian tiger who was starved enough to be at its peak. The tiger did not run away, and Pickle stood up to face it. As the two beasts ran towards each other, the human won by cracking the cat's spine by hugging it, and then they had a hearty meal. The news about him killing and eating an endangered animal spread quickly, and when Retsu learned of this, he went straight to Takugawa and learned that Pickle only eats what attacks him. For a chance to fight against the alpha male, Retsu offered to become his food if he lost, and while Takugawa was not happy about it, he could not resist the idea of an exciting fight. The preparations are made, and fake Einstein is not convinced even as Stridum and Takugawa say that the Kung Fu master won't lose so easily. Pickle is sleeping in the center of the arena without a care, and he suddenly wakes up when he feels the presence of someone strong approaching him. He gets up and looks around, and as Retsu leaps inside the arena, the caveman also takes a fighting stance as he has registered him as a threat. Retsu knows that this can be his last fight, and he is prepared to give it everything he has got, and he enters Pickle's zone, where one smack sends him dragging along the floor, and he crashes into the wooden fence. He stands up and realizes that he can never match the brute strength of Pickle, so he will overwhelm him with technique. Pickle rushes towards him, and Retsu kicks his face, and then he whips him with his ponytail, trips him down by kicking his legs, and then finishes it with a kick to his eyes. Pickle falls to the ground, and his body immediately reacts by crying, but as he gets up, Retsu commends his sturdiness. He attacks the caveman again, deflecting and dodging his attacks and hitting him with the 6-chin hit combo, also called the Brain Rattler, and thinks that Pickle must have suffered a lot of brain concussions by now. But he is not even affected by it and suddenly claps Retsu's head, giving him the concussions he was just talking about. As Retsu is stunned, Pickle grabs him, takes a bite off his shoulder, and then chews it as he cries. The Kung Fu master kicks back and frees himself, but then Pickle catches him again for another bite. Now Retsu has realized that his punches have no effect on his opponent and his shoulder is too badly damaged. So he takes off his heavy shoes that restrain the power of his kicks and lands a powerful one on Pickle's head, but he just swats him down and scratches him with his claws. Retsu gets up and realizes that his martial arts have lost the pure strength of the primitive man, and he decides that he will not use them. So he abandons the martial arts he was so proud of and cries as he runs towards Pickle with a windmill punch. It does no damage, but suddenly Pickle is confused because this is a women's fighting style, and he does not think that Retsu is worth fighting back now. But his body instinctively makes a move and Pickle blocks it. Retsu is shocked because he had decided to abandon his martial arts, but as Pickle attacks him, his body reacts by itself and uses the techniques that have been hammered down into his body. Then he hears the voice of his ideal self, who hugs him, saying that he has abandoned his martial arts, but the martial arts have not abandoned him. The ideal self tells Retsu to forget everything he was thinking and trust himself, and he does that. As Pickle comes to him for another bite, he uses another Brain Rattler, followed by the Ball Crusher. Retsu launches a barrage of strikes on Pickle, and then pulls his hair with his toes and slams his face on the knee, apparently knocking the caveman out. Retsu wonders if he won with that last attack, and Takugawa and Stridum think that he has, but fake Einstein tells them that he has not won because the kick did no damage to Pickle. When they first got him, they ran him through all sorts of tests and found that his neck bones were too thick, and fake Einstein says that such structure can only be found in the necks of four-legged animals, and it could be estimated that Pickle walked on all fours for a long period of his life. As the caveman gets up again, he is perfectly fine, and when Retsu attacks him, he jumps up and then takes the crouching position like a beast ready to hunt. With more muscle in his body than my family's 3 generations combined, Pickle gets ready to charge at Retsu, who takes his stance too, determined to not dodge or run but only fight back. Pickle charges at him at a super fast speed, showing the move he only used against the mightiest of the dinosaurs, and Retsu plans to counter him with his supersonic Mach punch. But Pickle's spear sends him flying through the wooden fence and into the missile, where he is knocked out, while the caveman only has a red eye and a bleeding nose. Then he cries as he walks towards his dinner, and Takigawa wants to stop him from eating Retsu, but fake Einstein asks him if he wants to go back on his promise. The tiny old man runs to stop Pickle anyway and tries to convince him with words, only to get slapped away like a tennis ball. Pickle cries and roars before eating his friend sadly, but fake Einstein intervenes and sedates the caveman, saving Retsu's life just for the cost of one leg and a bit of his shoulder. As Retsu wakes up in the hospital, he is ashamed that he failed to keep his promise, and then Baki comes to see him. The Kung Fu master is ashamed about his empty resolve, and Baki cheers him up, saying that his real worth was not his skills but his unbreakable character, and the defeated fighter thanks him. In his dojo, Dappo gets a call from Tokugawa, who tells him about Retsu and Pickle's fight and its end result. He is shocked and talks about it with his son Katsumi, who is furious that the caveman was underestimating them, and for the first time, Dappo sees that his spoiled son is about to evolve. Meanwhile, Pickle is in the city, hiding in a garbage dump where he steals the clothes of a man of his size, and then walks out in the open, where everything confuses him and leads him to an identity crisis. He is also hungry because he has not eaten anything since the few pounds of flesh he got from Retsu's leg, and he has admiration for the Kung Fu master for showing big guts despite his small strength. Pickle is lost in thought as he is crossing the road when he runs into the Great Truck Kun and becomes the only man known to defeat it. He is thrown away but has dented the truck, and as the worried driver comes to see him, he gets up and runs towards the truck and crushes it with his intense momentum. He grabs the truck and lifts it up to get revenge for every victim of Truck Kun, and then pulls the driving segment out. Then he thrashes the container, and when he opens it, he finds that there was meat inside it. Pickle immediately starts eating a whole pig, thinking that it was the meat of the giant mechanical beast he just defeated. Meanwhile, Katsumi can only think about Yujiro's words when he said he was unqualified, and he agrees with him, even as he punches holes in an iron drum. He was made the director of the karate school, but he knows he is not nearly as good as his dad, and to have an achievement under his name, he decides that he will fight Pickle. He had informed his fellow karate practitioners about this under the name of taking revenge for Retsu, who was one of their teachers, and one of them had found Pickle in a red light area. Katsumi is glad to receive the news, and before he can fight the primitive man, he defeats his dad with an illegal move since he was not in favor of the fight. The karate artists have surrounded Pickle, and they want to take him with them. But then a Yakuza boss named Hanayama, whose heart is as big as his body, stops them, and the karate master can only request that he fall back. One of the gangster's lackeys points his knife at him, but he knocks him and sends the knife flying, which is caught by both the muscle mountains. They grip the knife with such great strength that it snaps, and then Pickle slaps Hanayama and sends him flying. His lackey attacks the caveman, but he just catches his hand and turns his bones into mush. The carrot man tries to stop him by hitting him too, but he knocks him out with just one slap. But then Hanayama gets up again, and the surprised Pickle rushes at him, but the mob boss stops him, and the caveman realizes that he was as strong as the Triceratops. Hanayama pushes him back with not just his immense strength that came not only from his physique, but also of his character and mental strength. Pickle was happy that he could finally fight someone with equal strength, but Hanayama has no plans to do that because he was saving him for his friend Baki, whom he once fought and lost to. Baki thanks the Yakuza boss and then admires the beauty of Pickle, whose body has been perfected for combat. As the karate students and other bystanders watch how the strongest high schooler would react to the strongest creature, Baki does nothing but say that he really wanted to meet Pickle and apologizes for stopping him. The caveman invites him for a fist bump, and as Baki obliges, he uses the same move Yujiro had used on him to flip him over. Baki is shocked as he stands back up because the move Pickle just used was Aikido, which uses the enemy's momentum against them, and he feels really excited. The Hanma blood in him is aroused and takes over his senses as he kicks Pickle with all his might, but then apologizes, saying that he did not mean to hit him. The caveman is not angry. Instead, he seemed to flirt with Baki and invited him back to his place. He brings Baki back to the arena, and seeing his intentions, the latter gets ready to fight. But as Hanayama asks him if he is sure he wants to do this, he realizes that he was going to make a mistake. Baki thanks his friend who stopped him from doing something stupid just because of his instincts, but Pickle does not want him to back away and kicks him, sending him flying to the stands. He is knocked out with that single hit, and Pickle starts celebrating by doing a Fortnite dance. Meanwhile, Katsumi is a bit relieved when he learns he would not have to fight Pickle. But as Retsu comes to the dojo to lecture him as his teacher, he has no shame in saying that vengeance was just a banner. He just wanted to fight someone stronger than him, and he did not care about winning or losing anymore. Retsu is impressed and decides to help him with his training and spars him with his injuries still fresh. Retsu teaches Katsumi more about the Mac punch that both of them could use, saying that only one man has completely mastered it, and he was the Grandmaster of Kung Fu. They watch videos of bullets and whips in slow-mo to see the sonic boom when they cross the speed of sound. Katsumi could use that move by accelerating his punch through various joints, but it was not enough to take down Pickle. He wants to add more joints to it, including the spine and his fingers. And as Retsu commends his thoughts, the Grandmaster of Kung Fu, the 146-year-old Kakukayo, surprises them. He says that he has seen their demo, but now he will show them what a true supersonic attack looks like. He tells Retsu to hold an egg taped to a thread and then cut it open with a move so quick that no one could see it. He tells Katsumi to imagine that his hand had limitless joints, and using that imagination, he could achieve even faster attacks. So the young karate master tries it, and though he initially fails, he keeps trying until he gets it. He hones that attack to such a point where he imagines that his entire body is made of joints, and with one attack, he creates a sonic boom strong enough to shatter the windows of the training room. Baki heard the boom too while he was with his friend Rumina, a bully boy he recently befriended, and Stridum. He is preparing to train using his advanced shadow boxing technique, and Stridum asks who his opponent was. Baki goes into a state of fighting meditation, where his imagination and fighting spirit bring forth any enemy he wants to fight, and this time it is a T-Rex. Katsumi calls Tokugawa to arrange a match with Pickle, and the match is set in a baseball stadium at 6 in the morning. As he runs there, prepared to win or die, Katsumi meets his adoptive mom and then his birth mom and hugs them because this could be the last chance he gets to meet them. He thinks how lucky he is to have two moms as he goes to fight and finds Baki in the corridor, who had bowled out after his fight with the imaginary T-Rex. He is jealous and taunts Katsumi that he was lucky to go first, but he just ignores him and walks past him, where he meets Dappo, who tells him not to expect his dad to do the cleanup for him. As soon as he steps into the stadium, a shockwave stuns him, and it was coming from the punches of the 50,000 students of the karate school that had gathered here early in the morning to cheer their leader. Katsumi is overwhelmed by the support and walks right to the other side of the field, where he knows Pickle is waiting to fight him, and he leaps out of the gate suddenly, ready to devour him. In a flash, Katsumi hit his chin, chest, ribs, groin, and thighs and pushed him back, but Pickle leaped at him again, and the karate master kicked him with the Ball Crusher Pro Max before rattling his chin with a knee kick. But all of that was just a massage to the caveman, who attacks back with a devastating kick, and Katsumi not only predicts it, he blocks it and flies like a football. But as he gets up thinking about the strength of his opponent and thanking his real and adoptive parents for giving him everything, he sees Pickle's smile fade as he now sees him as not just a plaything but as food. Katsumi reminds him of his prey, and he takes a wide-armed stance that was the same as Yujiro's, and all the fighters in the audience are anxious about what is going to happen now. Pickle moves first, and instantly after that, Katsumi attacks him with a perfect Mac punch, and the caveman feels that its impact is like that of T-Rex's tail. The sonic boom stuns the entire stadium into going silent, and as Pickle falls to his knees, it erupts into cheers. The caveman felt this pain for the first time in his life, and as Katsumi thought about the effectiveness of his Mac punch, he realized that using it on anything harder than an egg would destroy the user's fist too. But he does not care about losing his most important weapon. And as Pickle rises up and attacks him again, he uses the principles of the Mac punch with his whole body and kicks and punches him in the face, knocking him down again. But then Katsumi falls to the ground with both his fists and one of his feet destroyed because the human body is not designed to stay intact after crossing the sound barrier. He gave everything he had to the fight, but now Pickle is rising up again and gets into his finishing spear stance to defeat his opponent. The karate master looks at the shocked faces of everyone in the arena, but he gets up too, determined to show them the ultimate move he had not used yet. As Pickle attacks him, he puts everything he knows and all his strength into one final move, moving his body like a whip and blowing the caveman away. But to execute his greatest move, he had to sacrifice his arm, and despite losing it, he went over to the unconscious Pickle and declared his victory as the entire stadium lost its cool. He bowed to thank them for supporting him, but then suddenly he felt Pickle moving and turned around to find him rolling around in his sleep. He had not lost the fight or his consciousness. He just went to rest because he was assured of his victory after seeing his opponent's condition, just like he would have done in his time. But as he wakes up again, he starts crying, and Katsumi realizes that the strongest man in the history of the world has acknowledged him as someone worthy of respecting and eating, and he starts crying too. Katsumi has accepted his defeat and his fate, and he lets Pickle attack him and asks him to devour him whole. Takegawa cannot let that happen and has already stationed hunters with tranquilizer guns ready to take Pickle down and protect the young Carrot Master. But before he can give them the command to shoot, Dappo stands before the old man, telling him to stop the shooters or he will have to eat his fist. He wants his son to live and die with his honor, and that will only be possible if he fulfills his promise to the caveman, who was kneeling before him with his hands joined in prayer, which was the instinctive reaction of humans to things they could not comprehend and emotions they could not contain. To honor the efforts and sacrifices of the small man in front of him, he decides to withdraw with an empty stomach because his heart was filled with those overwhelming emotions. Medics take Katsumi away while all the current students kneel to pay respect to him. And in the hall, the important people are there, and they are proud of the fight he put up against Pickle, who was crying his eyes out in the basement after one hell of a fight. The one-armed Katsumi wakes up in the hospital with one-legged Retsu tending to him, and they talk about how his achievement in the last battle was not just his own but that of all the people who had advanced Kung Fu and Karate to the present state. Then Baki comes to greet him with flowers and says that despite all that, he still could not win. Retsu is angry, but Katsumi agrees, saying that he gave it his all, and now it was Baki's turn to pick up the battle from where he left it. Baki takes the rose petals from the bouquet in his hand and then crushes them to extract its essential oil to rub on Katsumi's face as he accepts his request to take on Pickle. He begins gearing up for the fight, and when he tries to do image training by imagining Pickle in front of him, he fails utterly, despite having seen him in action. I think you probably need some magic shrooms. Retsu comes into the training room and says that neither he nor Katsumi could really say what Pickle really was because they could not bring out his true strength. Baki has already gone over the deep end, and he laughs like a maniac, saying that he can't believe he gets to fight with an unbelievably strong guy. He decides to go and fight him the first thing tomorrow, but before he can do that, his big bro Jack has already taken the initiative. Pickle gets up to see another strong guy who has come to play with him, and he is different compared to the other two before him. It's a straightforward guy who hits him with a powerful blow, but it does not do any damage. Jack is intrigued by Pickle's fangs and shows him his teeth that were strong enough to bite through a coconut. And now he wants to have a biting competition with the primitive man. They leap at each other and display the most intense kiss between two men who are not gay. Takugawa gets Baki's call about a matchup with Pickle tomorrow, and he tells him what was going on, scolding him for being too late, and he panics as he rushes to the arena. Pickle has proven his superior jaw strength by biting off Jack's face and then swinging and throwing him just with his neck muscles. The caveman chews Jack's face and swallows it, and he just laughs like a maniac upon losing the first round. But as Pickle attacks him again, he punches him with his full power and sends his gigantic body flying. Jack now realizes that his full power punch had no effect on his enemy, and his thick skull had protected his brain from all damage. But it fired Pickle enough to launch his killer strike at his enemy right away, and just as he leaps at Jack, Baki and Retsu come running to witness him being tossed to the roof like a volleyball. Knowing that he was facing a much more powerful opponent, Jack has doped himself on the strongest strength enhancer she could find, and he rushes to Pickle's location before he completely gets up and smashes his face in the stands. He lifts him up and throws him to the arena, then jumps right next to him and asks him if he really thought that humans had evolved since his time. He kicks Pickle right in the face, and as he falls down, he stomps on his face before picking him up and thinking back on everything he did just for the sake of strength, including too much exercise, too much doping, and even bone-lengthening surgery. The caveman is stunned, and then Jack bites off his ear and spits it back at him. Pickle realizes that the man took a part of his body, and now he is filled with rage and hatred towards him. Jack does not stop and rushes to punch him again, but he does not hit Pickle, who somehow dodges it, and only a clapping sound can be heard and a cloud of dust can be seen. He does not care and kicks the caveman, but the same thing happens again, and though it looks like Pickle had not moved even by an inch, he completely dodged the attack. Only when Jack sees the broken fence behind Pickle does he realize that the caveman not only dodged his attacks at super fast speed, but also used the fence as a spring and jumped back to his original place without letting him notice it. Jack is overwhelmed by the difference in their abilities, and he realizes that he was not fighting a human but a beast stronger than all the dinosaurs. They collide again, and Jack punches Pickle first, but he does not even flinch and hits him with a good old brain rattler. Jack flies up, and then Pickle hits him again and again, not letting him even touch the ground and juggling him with punches. He crashes into the wooden fence and breaks it, and after seeing that his enemy was utterly defeated, Pickle does his victory dance again. But then he starts crying, and everyone knows what that means. Pickle walks towards Jack, and Baki decides to step in and save his brother, but the primitive man senses a killer bee in the man he just defeated and backs away without eating him. 190,020 years ago, he was just a teen. Pickle faced a pestering bee for the first time, and after he managed to defeat it with a lot of struggle, he decided to eat it. But then the bee's sting and poison hit his tongue, and that was a sensation worse than any kind of pain he had felt. That day, he learned that some things do not die even when they are killed, and he was sure that Jack fell into the same category. Baki and Takugawa are curious about what could have happened, and as the latter goes near Jack, thinking that he could not fight back when unconscious, he makes the mistake of touching him. Then in a flash, Jack unconsciously attacks him with both his hands. Using an attack, he had planned to crush Pickle's brain through its ears, but thanks to Takugawa being much smaller in height, he was spared. This was something Jack had trained his body to do in case he got beaten down by anyone, and this was his way of giving the biggest middle finger in the world. Jack was taken to the hospital where a genius doctor and martial artist treated him and then talked with Takugawa and fake Einstein about how some extraordinary people can still move even after losing consciousness and even after death. As he tells them a true story, the nurse comes running to him to inform him that Jack has run away. He has gone straight to Pickle, where he first apologizes for leaving their fight in the middle and then suddenly kicks his face. He keeps on kicking the caveman, who turns away and starts running, not because the kicks do any damage, but because he was afraid of the crazy monster in front of him. Pickle knew the law of nature that all things stop moving once they are dead, but Jack did not follow that rule and had shown the proof to him before. So he ran away in fear, but it did not take long for his warrior pride to awaken, and as they came out in the open, he finally turned back to face the opponent he was running from. With one punch, he sent Jack spinning like a fan, who then fell into a coma, losing 2 times in a day. When he woke up in the hospital, he rushed out to get defeated a 3rd time, but this time, his little brother was there to stop him. Jack did not want to stop, but Baki told him that he was done as a warrior because after defeating him, Pickle carried him carefully, climbed the tallest building he could find, and tied him there so that he could eat him later. Jack was humiliated on learning that he was just food reserved to Pickle, and he cried, realizing that he really did not have a chance to fight against the caveman again. Now Baki wants to fight against Pickle, and so that no one else can do it before him, he sits with him in the arena, patiently waiting for him to get hungry. But he does not know that fake Einstein and his team were feeding Pickle with the T-Rex meat now, and by the time it was over, they could cultivate it in the lab. It meant that Pickle would never be hungry and not fight again. And as a big cut of T-Rex meat comes for the caveman who shares it with Baki, the latter realizes the problem. But he cannot give up on fighting, and he decides to taunt Pickle by gently approaching him and tapping his face gently in a condescending manner. This does serious damage to the beast's ego, and he is furious as he leaps at Baki and pushes him to the other side of the arena, who says that this is the first time the primitive man will fight purely for his pride and not for his food. He kicks him away and then strikes his face with a powerful roundhouse kick, making Pickle fall to the ground. Retsu was there to watch the beginning of the match, and he recaps the first move for Hanma and Takugawa, who come just a few seconds late. While Pickle is down, Baki gets ready to fight by taping himself up. Then he walks to his opponent and kicks his face hard, and without giving him any chance to recover, he jumps up and stomps on him again and again. Pickle loses confidence and runs, but Baki strangles him, thinking that this battle was not about killing or eating or winning or losing. It was a pure contest of strength and pride. Pickle runs faster than a horse and then leaps up to the highest row in the stands and then jumps down from there. Both he and Baki slam to the ground, and the latter barely retains his consciousness as he is still standing after the dust settles, and none of his friends can believe that he was so tough. Pickle gently taps his shoulder, and Baki is not even able to react as he is barely standing after falling from 30 meters. His internal organs are a mess, and he can't even breathe. On top of that, he almost throws up blood and then feels like his legs are shouldering an immense weight. He was somehow acting to be fine, but Pickle realizes his condition, and he regrets being too rough with his playmate, so he gets on his knees and is about to pray for him when Baki slaps his hands away. His pride overtakes his body when his opponent tries to pray for him, and as he screams at him to not look down on him, he realizes he could not even speak. Pickle is surprised, and he gets up and punches Baki, but he does it as gently as he could to show him that he was not dangerous. He looks at the modern human and tells him that he wouldn't be harmed, so he should play with him. Those soft punches hit Baki's Sigo, where it hurt the most, and he blames himself for being too weak to pick a fight with Pickle. So he climbs back to the place from where he was dropped earlier and jumps down to the arena, injuring himself again. Then he gets back up and tells Pickle that he did not need his pity, and the caveman has no idea why anyone would be so stupid as to damage himself on purpose. Then suddenly Baki attacks him, and it seems that he missed thrice, but then Pickle falls down and everyone is shocked. He gets up and walks towards Baki, but he loses balance and falls again, and only Retsu has the faintest idea about what Baki had done. He says that Pickle's thick skull could not be rattled by the strongest of blows, so Baki just grazed the tip of his chin with the skin of his fist. It was a technique rarely used by boxers, as it sent very high-frequency vibrations to the brain instead of the usual blunt shock. Baki hit Pickle 3 times with that attack, and that must have rattled his brain enough to make him lose normal functioning. Pickle gets up, and he is confused at the sorcery Baki just used, and even though his whole body is trembling, he does not run away. He thinks that his opponent could magically make the ground move, and now he realizes that the fight was not going to be easy for him. But Baki has not even recovered from the first fall, and to buy time for himself, he decides to use a cheap move against Pickle. He leaves his body loose and walks towards the caveman, slapping him in the back and causing him to groan in pain and roll on the floor. This was the whip strike, a move that would work on any opponent, from an infant to Yujiro Hanma. The body was left loose on purpose to deliver a swinging slap that caused a great deal of pain no matter where the enemy was hit because the target was the skin. As Baki hits Pickle with those whip-like slaps, he cries in pain, and Retsu explains the principle to Hanayama and Takigawa, and he says that this weapon is the most effective in the hands of women, and the latter knows it because he has been slapped all his life. Baki slaps Pickle again, but he blocks that attack with his hands and comes into a defensive formation. But then he gets into his killer strike position, ready to end the fight, and in response, Baki changes his fighting style too. He uses the kung fu technique of mimicking a tiger, followed by an eagle, a mantis, a monkey, and a bear. Baki knows that nothing among these will be enough to take down Pickle, and that is why he decides to mimic a creature that Pickle would be wary of, and it was a triceratops. The caveman is indeed shocked as he sees one of the most ferocious enemies he fought in the man who was only half his size, but there was more where that came from. Baki imitates the style of a flying dino pteranodon, and then a T-Rex, and Pickle steps back in fear, because now his enemy has become a combination of the strongest beasts that roam the face of the earth. To him, Baki appears to have the jaws and tail of a T-Rex, the feet and horns of a triceratops, and the wings and talons of a pteranodon. He just stands there stunned as Baki leaps at him, catches his hands, and twists them before slamming him onto the ground, and the caveman could only understand that he had been bit and flung by a T-Rex. As Pickle gets up and looks at his hand, Baki charges at him again, and this time the caveman jumps up and uses the fence behind him as a launch pad to attain a fully horizontal start. This was the technique that gave him the maximum possible momentum to fight against dinos who were 100 times larger than himself. But Baki does not even try to move from his position. He faces the attack head-on and sends the caveman flying with his own momentum, just with a slight flick of his hand. Pickle crashes into the stands and stands up again, and Baki goes to the corners of the arena and marks his territory like he is a stray dog, and that makes Pickle angry. He gets down, and now Baki says that he went too far pretending to be a dinosaur, and now they will fight like humans. He approaches the caveman, who slams him to the ground with overwhelming force and then stomps on him again and again. Baki is shaking with excitement now, and as he gets up, Pickle punches him and sends him flying once again. He lands on his feet, and then Pickle hits him with an uppercut again, and he does a cartwheel before successfully landing on his feet again. Pickle keeps on attacking him, and he keeps on dodging all the attacks thrown on him while he thinks that he needs to overcome the primitive man before he can fight his dad. He reduces his large movements until it appears that he was dancing away from Pickle's punches, who was shocked to see his unbelievable speed. He attacks Baki again, who seemed to be a ghost he could not touch no matter how fast he was. It seemed like he went right through Baki, who was as hard to catch as a butterfly, and as he attacks him again, the same thing happens over and over again. Pickle is taken aback and puts some distance between them as he keeps attacking Baki with ferocious intensity, who keeps on dancing and dodging those attacks. But then he goes behind the primitive man and uses the strongest ball crusher in the history of fighting, and even though Pickle had survived similar blows 2 times, this one was too much for him, and he becomes a fidget spinner due to pain. Baki is making sure the primitive man can have no kids in the modern world. But despite getting hit there with a devastating blow, Pickle does not look like he would stop fighting and instead goes after Baki with double intensity. He gets up, trembling with rage and anticipation, and shows a wide grin to his opponent. Baki suddenly notices wounds on Pickle's body running across his chest diagonally, and he wonders how he got them. But when he sees the same wounds on his back, he realizes that they were the bite marks of a T-Rex, and the 3 men watching the fight started clapping together without a signal for the man who had survived being bitten by a dinosaur. Then Pickle starts to rearrange his joints to transform into his final battle form, and he becomes bigger, stronger, and sturdier than ever. Baki thanks him for showing him his final form since it was a sign of friendship and respect, and to return it to him, he does not move and blocks Pickle's full-strength blow, which sends him dragging along the floor. Pickle chases him and hits him with a strong punch again, but he jumps and kicks his fist with both his feet, canceling the impact of the attack. Baki smiles, saying that while the caveman has the advantage in physical terms, he has his skills that have come to him as a result of civilization. Pickle attacks him with a heavy blow, and he blocks that attack before kicking him in the face. Baki remembers his history and all the things and people that had supported him till this point, and then he is able to see the history of the crying pickle too, and among the beasts that led him to this place were the faces of the humans he fought and defeated. Pickle attacks him, and Baki takes all the time he has available to think of his response, and at the end he lets his body decide for him, and the decision is beating his opponent to the punch. He hits Pickle, who tries to attack him again, but Baki uses his momentum and flow to hit his chin with a soft punch, and then finishes it with a strong counter. Pickle cannot do anything as Baki keeps landing punches at him and eventually pushes him to the edge of the arena. Neither the strength nor the size of the caveman are working for him as he gets hit by Baki, and even when he tries to use the lightning-fast movement like he did with Jack, the small human catches up to his speed without missing a single punch. With his powerful strikes, Baki blows Pickle away, and just as he was about to win, he throws away that chance and decides to prove that he could defeat the primitive man in more ways than one. He challenges Pickle to a contest of stamina, and then begins a slugfest where they punch each other with all their might, and then Pickle suddenly uses a move by grabbing and slamming him to the floor. Baki is knocked out cold, and as the medics come to help both the injured fighters, Takugawa asks the two fighters with him about their opinions. Retsu says that Pickle is the clear winner, but Hanayama has different views. He says that the only way the weak can overcome the strong is by using moves and weapons, and if Pickle used a move, it was the same as acknowledging that Baki was stronger than him. The gangster adds that it is the unwritten rule of the battle that the strong do not have the right to use tricks. Takugawa thinks that both the fighting masters are right in their stance, and they are equally harsh too. Then suddenly, Pickle stands up although he is still stumbling, and he walks out of the arena, and no one tries to stop him. Baki was taken to a hospital on a stretcher, but he also ditched treatment and found Pickle sitting on the highest building in the city because he enjoyed the view. He takes a seat next to his great senior, and they imagine the world still covered with Jurassic plants and wildlife. After some time, there are serious discussions about Pickle's fate, and neither the USA nor the UN can decide anything, so they choose 1 billion people around the world to vote if Pickle should be recaptured and put into the rock salt layer, or if he should be left free. By an extremely close margin, the people who want to put him back win, and fake Einstein and Stridham go to Tokyo to fetch him even though they are disappointed in humanity. But Pickle has no plans to be put back in permanent storage or to stay in confinement, and he has broken free of his restraints, tons of chloroform, and the steel door used to lock him in. He has also stolen the head of the T-Rex, and he surprises Stridham with it as a gift for fulfilling his promise and bringing him to such strong men. With that, the primitive man disappears into Tokyo without a trace, not to be found out by any government again. Soon after his fight with Pickle, Baki gets a full-body medical checkup because now he's going to fight his dad, Yujiro Hanma, for the title of the strongest man. There's nothing wrong with his body, so he returns to his life as a high school student. One morning, he runs into his girlfriend, Kozu, as they are both late for school. Kozu pretends that she had some fun with other guys while Baki was away fighting the caveman. He says good for her, and she kicks his ass, telling him that it was sarcasm. He just laughs as he holds her hand because he does not want to get away from her for now. Soon after that, Baki is cornered by 2 thugs in a dark alley, and they hit him hoping to extort some money from him. Their bitch-ass punches have no effect on him, so the leader of the thugs takes out his knife. As soon as Baki sees it, something inside him awakens, and the thug feels his knife shrinking like his snake in the winter. Just then, a seemingly ordinary office worker arrives there and tells Baki that it is not nice to bully someone so pathetically weaker than him. Baki is pleasantly surprised to see the man named Kiriagawa, who was his mother's secretary back when she was alive. Kiriagawa tells the 2 thugs to thank him because he spared them from a few months of hospitalization and forces them to run away. After that, he takes Baki to a coffee shop so that they can catch up on the old times. Kiriagawa has heard that soon the greatest battle of all time is going to take place between Baki and his dad, Yujiro Hanma. He hopes that the battle is going to be more epic than Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. But Baki says it is not a big deal, but a simple fight among family members. Kiriagawa doesn't accept his words because he believes that the fight is to avenge Baki's mom, Imi, who died at Yujiro's hands. Baki knows that too because 5 years ago, when he fought his dad for the first time, his mom was not on his side. He always knew that his mom was not an ordinary woman. She married rich, and while she was on her honeymoon, she noticed Yujiro radiating the aura of an apex predator. As she saw him kill a top martial artist with one kick, she became more wet than the Pacific Ocean. Yujiro recognized it too, so the very same night, he snuck into her husband's mansion, killed the man and his guards, and claimed Ime as his own. He gave her only one role, which was to raise a strong son, and Ime gave her all to that task. She never treated Baki as her son, but as someone to fulfill Yujiro's thirst for power. She raised him as an elite sportsperson, hoping that Yujiro would love her if she could turn his son into someone like him. However, Yujiro didn't give a single shit about love, and his relationship with Ime was just to get a strong son. She took all her frustration out on Baki and hit him repeatedly, and he only asked her whether she would be able to love him if he defeated Yujiro and became the strongest man. Baki wanted his mother's love, and he got it when Ime sacrificed her life to save him from Yujiro. He was down and almost unconscious, and to save his life, Ime stood up to Yujiro and punched him in the face. She looked the strongest man in the eye and told him that he would have to fight her next. The result of doing so was obvious, and Yujiro crushed her with a birha. As Baki recalls his mom's sacrifice, he starts crying, saying that if he is alive and kicking, it is all because of her. He believes that all of his strength originates from Ime's actions when she gave up her life to save him. That is why he is not fighting his dad to avenge her, but to repay her love. He wipes his tears and snot, and then Kuriagawa bows to him, apologizing for not being considerate of his feelings. In return, Baki bows to him for caring for him all this time. Soon after that, Baki goes to his childhood home, doing his favorite image training for his fight against his dad. He stares at the blank wall of his basement while sweating buckets until his imagination takes the shape of Yujiro. Baki attacks the illusion of his dad, but the illusion hits him so hard that it creates a localized earthquake. Baki is embedded in the wall and knocked out cold with just one punch from an imaginary Yujiro, which is how Jake Paul will end up when he fights Mike Tyson. Meanwhile, the owner of the largest underground arena in Japan, the old midget Takugawa, is meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister. He offers him $100 million in exchange for the government's approval and cooperation for a fight between Baki and Yujiro. The Prime Minister is shocked to hear this offer, but as he talks with other ministers who know more about the two men, he learns that Yujiro once assaulted a previous Prime Minister and defeated hundreds of armed guards single-handedly. Not only that, the USA has signed a treaty of friendship with him, considering him as powerful as an entire nation. And that is why no one can dare to even think of harming Yujiro. No one, except a few men, has personally acknowledged him. One of them is his close friend Oliver, who is the strongest man in the USA. He's a prisoner, but for namesake, as he has so much freedom that Eren Yeager will be jealous of him. Oliver attacks Yujiro with all his might, but his punch is too slow, and he gets hit in the face and flung across the room with one punch from Yujiro. He decides to change his strategy and charges in with a wrestling move, but that is also not enough, and Yujiro forces him down in a contest of brute strength. Another person who is permitted to harm Yujiro is the war veteran named Stridum. He has the right to call Yujiro his friend, but on the condition that he seriously tries to kill him once each year. Stridum is not only an expert in martial arts and foul play, but also in weapons and explosives. He creates a strong explosive mix that can blast through steel, even with a small amount, and he plans to use it against Yujiro. He puts the explosive in his gloves and shoes and wears armor as he waits for Yujiro to come. However, he freaks out just as he hears his voice. As Stridum tries to explain his plan this time, Yujiro starts laughing like a monkey who has seen a funny TikTok because he knows that his preparations are not enough to take him down. With one strike, he sends his helmet flying and tells Stridum that he has broken his promise. The soldier tries to act brave and says that he still has not given up, but as his helmet falls to the ground and his armor suddenly cracks, he realizes he is screwed. He clacks his gloves and then his shoes to use all the explosives to show that he has surrendered. After that, Yujiro goes to meet Takugawa and asks him if he has been taking proper medical checkups. The old midget can't believe these kind words are coming from the mouth of the strongest and most violent of men. He starts asking if he has gone senile or something because he, of all people, should not ask people if they are doing well. Yujiro tells the old fool to stop, but he doesn't, and ultimately coughs out a lot of blood as he collapses. That is exactly what Yujiro was trying to warn Takugawa about, because you could tell just from one glance that he was unwell. After spending most of his life fighting, Yujiro had attained the superpower to figure out anyone's weakness with just one glance. His senses are so sharp now that he can identify cancer before it even occurs and dads before they leave to get milk. Takugawa opens his eyes in a hospital under Dr. Kura's care, who is an expert martial artist himself. He tells the old man to rest as his condition is quite bad as he is suffering from an obnoxious lung cancer. On the other hand, Baki goes out on a late-night walk and stops in front of the best karate school in the world. He can see Katsumi, the young director of the karate school, practicing his new moves with a polybag. He lost an arm while fighting Pickle, and that is why he is developing a one-armed fighting style that suits him better. He whips the polybag around with supersonic strikes, and then suddenly, Baki arrives in the room and hits the polybag back at him. He climbs the 9th floor and entered the room through the window, and Katsumi is impressed. Baki is also amazed at Katsumi's determination to grow stronger despite losing an arm recently. They talk about how tough it is to create your own identity when your dad is a big shot while playing volleyball with the polybag. Katsumi hits it on Baki's face and he catches it before explaining that he doesn't even hate his dad anymore. He then tosses the polybag up and cuts it cleanly with a kick, saying that even though there is no hate, he still wants to fight his dad and beat him. After that, the two men sit down to hydrate and chill, and Katsumi tells Baki that their friend Sea King Retsu has taken up boxing. Baki is curious about the news and tells Katsumi to spill the tea. Retsu, who lost his leg while fighting the primitive man Pickle, entered a boxing gym and asked the coach to allow him to join the academy. The coach tries to be as sensible as he could to point out that he doesn't train people for the Special Olympics. Retsu told him that if he has no problem with fighting on one leg, his opponent shouldn't have it either, and the coach decided to admit him. He asked Retsu to hit a heavy punching bag with all of his might, and the Kung Fu master asked him if he had a replacement for this. The coach laughed and promised to be his personal trainer if he could damage the bag, and Retsu decided to give him a show of his strength. With one punch, he turns the punching bag into smithereens, and no one can believe what he just did. Present, the lightweight boxing champion Mani is being interviewed before his next title match in the same boxing gym. He has won all matches of his career by KO in the first round itself, and the media is hyped about his next match. Manny is also confident in his abilities and says that he doesn't keep track of numbers and only focuses on the ring, where true magic happens. Later, as he is training, Manny looks at the punching bag Retsu demolished, and just by one glance at him, the boxing champion can tell that he is strong. He wants to spar against him and convinces his coach that he will try not to hurt him. The coach goes to Retsu with the offer, but he rejects it after taking one look at Manny. He claims that the boxer is at a great disadvantage against him, and he can't even get serious against someone like him. Manny wants all the smoke now, and he tells Retsu to put on the gloves and come fight him. Retsu jumps into the ring and once again tells the boxer that it will be dangerous, but he just yells at others to put the gloves on the martial artist's fists. The match starts, and as soon as Retsu takes his stance, Manny realizes that he is in his zone. He attacks him but gets knocked out cold with a swift jab that he doesn't even see coming. Retsu returns to his image training after that, and the coach lashes out at him, telling him to practice boxing if he is in his gym. He replies like a Chad and tells the coach that he will do proper boxing practice if a boxer can defeat him first. Manny accepts Retsu's words and says that he may have won today, but he has also made enemies with all the boxers in the world. Soon after that, the coach finds another sparring partner for Retsu, and this time is a heavyweight boxer from the USA because the coach wants Retsu to learn his limits by fighting an opponent much above his weight class. The match starts, and Retsu can tell that the heavyweight boxer is at least 15 kilograms heavier than him, and his speed and footwork are also excellent. The boxer sends him into a corner with just one punch, but that made Retsu realize that his grip inside the glove is weak. He uses that to his advantage and counters the boxer's next punch with a headbutt, fracturing his fingers. Retsu doesn't stop there, and he walks towards the boxer with a weird stance, and then shatters his arm bone as he tries to block his face with it, much to everyone's shock. However, this is just the start of his boxing career. On the other hand, Stratum pays Baki a visit on his request and learns that the boy wants to have a normal dinner with his dad. The war veteran can't believe the words and tells Baki to stop playing dumb because if he and Yujiro are in one room, it will be like 50% of the world's testosterone is there. Baki is not ready to accept it and keeps on explaining the perfect dinner he would have with his dad, and he wants Yujiro to do something fatherly once in a while and cook some rice for him. Stratum finds it hard to accept those words, but he still conveys them to Yujiro over lunch. Yujiro gets furious as he hears about his son's demands and leaves the restaurant. Soon after that, the leaders of the most powerful nations gather in Japan, including the anime version of Barack Obama. The Prime Minister of Japan tells them that Yujiro is soon going to fight his son, who is also someone strong enough to be recognized as a nation-level force. He wants the help of everyone to make the event as safe as possible for everyone. One man asks why they don't let the father and son fight it out to their heart's content, as it is just a family dispute at the end of the day, but Dollar Store Obama interrupts him. He shows a bottle containing coal dust that Yujiro made by crushing wood on his request, to show that he is on good terms with the strongest man. Suddenly, Yujiro enters the room after knocking out all the security guards and making them pee their pants. He crushes the jar of coal dust and places it in fake Obama's hand as a cross as he reminds him of his friendship pledge. As part of the pledge, Obama swears that he has no right to interfere in Yujiro's private life. Yujiro is not happy that they are trying to interfere in his domestic matters. Dollar Store Obama tells him that if he fights his son, it will not be a domestic dispute but a virtual war, and they just want to protect their people from the crossfire. Yujiro accepts his answer and then walks out while telling everyone to do as they please but stay out of his sight. Back at Baki's home, he spends his morning training against his imaginary dad, which is pretty much what I do in my free time. After that, he has breakfast by himself, but thanks to his strong imagination, which people call schizophrenia, he has a whole conversation with Yujiro, who is not even there. His imaginary dad is not happy that he didn't like his cooking and flips him along with the table. Baki lands on his feet and then starts laughing, thinking this is how he wants to fight with his dad. He then gets ready for school and finds Kozu waiting for him outside. She heard him talking earlier and wants to know who was inside, but believes when he tells her it was his imaginary dad. They walk to school and Baki tells Kozu that if she is worried about him, she should just come and stay over. Later, Baki is back in his basement trying to make his muscles more flexible and fluid. He spots a cockroach and addresses it as his teacher because he has tried to learn from it many times. He respects cockroaches that can go from 0 to max speed instantly without the need for any acceleration. If a cockroach were the size of a human, it would travel at a speed of 170 miles per hour. Baki knows that the only way for humans to do that is to be hit by a train because their muscles are not made for it. However, one day he saw the dead body of a cockroach and found the secret to its great speed was a milky white fluid that acted as its muscles. That is why Baki has been training to be like a fluid, and he has finally achieved something worth showing. He moves so fast that all the sweat on his body stays behind and falls a second after he has moved forward, but he is still not satisfied. At the same time, Retsu is training in the boxing gym, and he just stays in the horse stance the entire time because there is no one worthy of fighting him anymore. As the coach is talking to the gym's director about this problem, a flamboyant man enters the gym along with the heavyweight boxer Retsu beat previously. This flashy man is Kaiser, one of the greatest promoters in the boxing business, and he is here to meet Retsu. As he sees the Kung Fu master, he cannot stop ogling his well-defined and beautiful muscles. Kaiser wants to talk to him, but Retsu tells him off because he is disturbing his training. Kaiser apologizes to him and then asks him for a simple favor, showing his true strength to him. Retsu obliges and picks up the most worn-out glove from the shelf. He puts it on and takes his stance, and as everyone wonders what he is going to do, he throws a punch so fast that it tears through the glove. While Retsu criticizes his decision to select the most worn-out glove because it was easy to destroy, everyone else realizes that he just did the impossible because destroying boxing gloves is like seeing John Cena. Kaiser gets a hard-on seeing Retsu's display of strength, but he tells him that this means a war between Kung Fu and boxing. He makes an offer to Retsu and asks him to join professional boxing, not just for the millions of dollars, but to face real monsters that will give him a tough fight. Retsu cannot refuse the offer, and Kaiser flies him and the coach straight to Vegas. Retsu doesn't like Vegas, and he declares that there is nothing real in this city. Kaiser admits it and tells him that there are many fake things in the world that claim to be the real deal, and if he wants to prove that he's a real warrior, he must do it in the ring. He takes Retsu and the coach to the arena, where they see a former heavyweight champion fight. Kaiser enters the ring after the fight ends and addresses the crowd, saying that he has found the greatest enemy of the 150-year history of modern boxing. On his cue, Retsu leaps into the ring and Kaiser introduces him as the greatest Kung Fu master in the world. He thanks Retsu for coming along with him and giving him the chance to present this wonderful show to his audience. However, the boxing champion Andre doesn't like Kaiser stealing his thunder, and he directly confronts him. The crowd starts booing him too, but Kaiser doesn't mind. He tries to set up a fight between Andre and Retsu, saying that the Kung Fu master from China is here to trample on him and his boxing. The boxer mocks Retsu for being much smaller than him and missing a leg on top of that, but he simply replies that the bigger the man, the smaller the brain. He says that having muscles doesn't make one a good fighter, but Andre is not falling for his taunts. Kaiser then brings forth a stack of concrete slabs for Retsu to display his strength to the audience. However, Retsu says that destroying such a small thing is not going to please him or anyone, and he looks at Andre, saying that he wants to destroy something bigger and stronger. The boxer finally takes the bait and breaks the concrete slabs with one punch before taking up Retsu's challenge. The crowd goes crazy cheering for Andre, but then Retsu shows his skill and turns concrete slabs into powder with one hit. Everyone is speechless on seeing this, and Kaiser takes this chance to declare an exhibition match between Andre and Retsu. After that, the press asks Retsu about his journey as a martial artist, and he tells them that he entered the Kung Fu temple at the age of 4 and kept on training. As for his career, he only fought unofficial fights and never counted his wins or losses. The press asks him what kind of rules were used in the unofficial fights, and Retsu says that there were no rules, and he lost his leg in one of those fights as well. Kaiser takes the charge after that and hypes up the match between two fighters from different backgrounds. Later, Retsu is in his hotel suite with the coach, who thinks that he is disrespecting boxing. He claims that Retsu has only fought 2 sparring matches, and now he is going to face Andre, who is a former world champion. The coach asks him to dodge 1 punch from him and hits him before even finishing his sentence. He hits Retsu right in the face before he can even react and tells him that if this punch was from Andre, he would have been knocked out cold. The coach tells him to decline the fight and return to Japan, but as he tries reaching for his beer can, he finds that his hand has been flipped like that one scene from Harry Potter. He can't understand what just happened, and Retsu fixes his wrists that got dislocated just by hitting him in the face. He apologizes to the coach for looking down on boxing, but asks him to let him fight with his honor as a martial artist on the line. A few minutes later, it is finally time for the much-anticipated exhibition match. Retsu can't comprehend why everything seems to be so overhyped for just a match. He can tell that everyone is acting to make the fight look bigger than it is, but he hates that they are turning boxing into WWE too. However, as the fight begins, Andre tells him that there will be no more acting from this point on. As the bell rings, Andre starts intimidating Retsu with his swift footwork despite his gigantic frame. Retsu realizes that Andre's power is not in his physical strength but in his speed, and to face him, he goes and squats in a corner. Everyone knows that it is basically suicide in the boxing ring, and the referee asks him to stand up and fight. Retsu replies that he is standing and he plans to win the fight without getting hit a single time. Andre tells the referee to get out of his way and resumes the fight. He charges ahead confidently, but as he throws his first punch, Retsu quickly dodges it and covers his eyes with his glove. Andre is perplexed, and as he removes the glove, Retsu shuts his eyes with his other glove. This was enough to throw him off his game, and he is frozen stiff as Retsu moves to his side and puts his glove on Andre's cheek. The giant can only stare at the camera as Retsu knocks him out using his special 0-inch punch. The next day, Kaiser invites Retsu to his office and presents him with $2 million for winning the fight so flashily. The news about the Chinese martial artist defeating a former world champion spread throughout the US, and it was fueled when Retsu told the press that boxing is an immature fighting form that cannot compare to Kung Fu. Kaiser tells him that now all the boxers in the world think of him as an enemy, but that is a good thing for both of them. He tells Retsu to take the money, and he accepts it, but he already has the attitude of a champion, and he tells Kaiser to get his filthy boots away from his money. He attacks Kaiser and yeets away his Ray-Bans even before he can blink, and then asks him to put the money in a briefcase and give it to him nicely. The dumbfounded Kaiser obliges and even calls a car to take Retsu back to his hotel. Back at Baki's place, he is brewing himself some coffee when his spider sense activates and his hair stands up on their edge. He can feel that his dad is approaching his house, and he quickly pours a cup for him too. He is nervous as he wonders how far Yujiro is from his house, but as he turns around, he finds that he is already sitting there. Baki gives him coffee and nervously watches him drink. Yujiro then asks him if this is the normal father-son relationship he wants, and Baki affirms. He says that he has hated, feared, and respected him for as long as he can remember. He claims that he wanted to have a normal conversation with Yujiro, and when they would disagree about something small, they would start fighting each other like normal people do. As Yujiro hears this, he decides to fulfill his son's wishes and tells him that he has prepared the most shitty coffee he has ever drunk. Instead of disagreeing and talking back, Baki immediately apologizes to him. Yujiro's brain freezes like there are 2 tabs of Chrome open in it, and then Baki tells him to stop acting like a fool. He claims that even if he wants a normal quarrel between them, the problem should be real. Judging by how Yujiro drank the coffee in 2 gulps, he is confident that it was not bad at all. Yujiro replies that he was just trying to get it over with because he is not interested in the family drama part. Baki suddenly asks him to make coffee for him, and Yujiro is infuriated. He picks up the coffee table and tells his son that there is only one way to drink coffee made by Yujiro Hanma, and that is to force him to make it. He tears the coffee table like it is a piece of paper, and then stacks the 2 pieces together to tear them as well. He walks away telling Baki that if he wants him to make coffee for him, he must leave him no other choice. Yujiro slams the door shut as he leaves the house, and Baki can't stop sweating as he falls to his knees. He feels that getting his dad to agree to his whims was easier than he thought, but he is not satisfied yet. He rushes outside and screams at Yujiro, telling him to close the door of his house gently. A menacing smile spreads on Yujiro's face, and he tells his son that he is right. He starts walking away, and Baki stares at him, knowing full well that asking his dad to come back and shut the door will probably be going too far. So he decides that he will be satisfied with what happened just now. Soon after that, Baki meets a gangster called Chiharu waiting to fight him in the market. Baki has no reason to fight with him, but the gangster is under orders from his boss, Hanayama, to pick a fight with him. Chiharu flicks a cigarette at Baki and then rushes towards him, but he counters with a swift punch and sends him flying. He gets up, recalling his boss' order, and tells Baki not to go easy on him. Baki replies that it was the last time that he was trying to be gentle, and he warns Chiharu that he will get hurt if he attacks him again. That is just what he wants, and he aims for Baki's crotch with a kick. However, Baki is faster and immediately knocks him down. Chiharu gets up and rushes at him again, and even as he is knocked out with a few fast punches from Baki, he manages to land one hit to his face. As Baki returns home later, he finds Chiharu waiting to fight him there. He refuses to fight him again because he needs a good reason to face someone so weak as him. Baki asks him if he wants to practice for an upcoming brawl, and Chiharu says that he is here to help him practice for his match against Yujiro. Baki wonders if it is April Fool's yet, but the gangster is dead set on fighting him. He charges ahead only to get slapped and KO'd by Baki, who tells Chiharu that he is too weak to be his training partner. Baki goes inside and starts reading manga, but Chiharu gets up again, so he decides to teach him a lesson and send him home. Baki puts on his shoes, and just as he opens the door, he gets hit by a strong punch from the gangster. Chiharu was winding that punch for a long time, and he used his daredevil-like ears to hear that Baki didn't put on his shoes properly to fight him. Infuriated by that, he hit him with a punch that cast him to the ground. He is not done yet and goes inside to grab Baki and toss him out through the door. As Chiharu keeps on attacking Baki, he finally realizes what he is up to. He knows that Chiharu hasn't learned any martial arts, and he fights just with brute strength and fighting spirit, and he claims that he has understood the theme now. The gangster doesn't care if he gets the theme or not, because to him, Baki is just a giant monster. He rushes him with a powerful uppercut, fully aware that his moves are boring to a top-tier martial artist like Baki. Not surprisingly, Chiharu's full power punch doesn't even make Baki budge, and he quickly knocks the gangster out. Chiharu is still conscious, and he wants to tell Baki that this is not a fight between martial artists that is settled when one person loses. Instead, it is a fight that will go on until one side accepts defeat. He faces Baki the next day again as he is returning from his grocery shopping. Baki knocks Chiharu out and then thanks him for showing his determination. Now he wants to fight like him too, because there is no other way to make a determined man like him back down. Chiharu takes this as an insult and declares that no one can fight like him. He punches Baki, who counterattacks by bringing his face to the punch and destroying Chiharu's fist. Baki claims that this is the Chiharu style of fighting, where he uses his weak points to destroy enemies' weapons. The gangster kicks him, and Baki once again counters it with a headbutt strong enough to shatter his bones. Chiharu starts losing confidence now, but he does not show it and instead challenges Baki to finish the fight if he is a true man. Chiharu takes his stance to poke out his eyes, but Baki doesn't think that someone like him can do that because he never targets anyone's weak points. That is why he declares that he will dive into his hand with his eyes and asks Chiharu to just keep his hand firm. Baki suddenly accelerates with such great speed that Chiharu doesn't even realize what happened until he is a few meters away from him. He never planned to attack Baki's eyes from the start and was going to make a fist just before the moment of the impact, but Baki didn't give him the time for that and truly crushed his fingers with his eyeballs. This was thanks to the new ultimate move, Cockroach Dash, he just created. Back in Vegas, Kaiser shows Retsu the fight of his next opponent, a top boxer nicknamed Smokey. Kaiser thinks that Smokey has no talent, but since he has a good fan base, he set up their fight. At night, the coach asks Retsu what he thinks about Kaiser's words, and he agrees with him that Smokey has no talent. Despite that, he has risen up in the world of pro boxing just with his sheer determination, and Retsu could tell that just by looking at his face. Suddenly, someone knocks at the door, and the coach opens the door to find that they have the legendary boxer Muhammad Ali in their room. Retsu deeply respects him, and Ali asks him not to fight Smokey as things may not turn out well for him. He explains that the reason Smokey got his nickname is because he surrounds his enemies like smoke and overwhelms them from all sides. Ali ranks Smokey very highly and thinks that Retsu will get knocked out in the battle, but the martial artist has no intention to back out of the fight. The night of the match arrives soon, and Retsu feels intimidated by Smokey, who is shorter and lighter than him. He feels that it is not because of his physical strength, but because of his powerful character, and he feels he will be a great opponent. The fight starts soon, and Smokey immediately gets on the offensive. Retsu keeps blocking his attacks easily, but despite that, he feels that he is taking damage. He feels that Smokey's gloves are behaving like sharp blades and dealing invisible damage to him. Both fighters land a punch to each other's jaws, and Retsu is knocked down instantly. On the floor, he thinks that his punch hit Smokey too, but it was not comparable to his attack that left him completely rattled. Smokey's punch was heavier than Baki's and Pickle's punches and even heavier than my best friend's mom. He finally realizes that the secret behind the heavy punches is the use of the boxing glove's weight. The referee has begun the count, and Retsu gets up after finally figuring out that Smokey is the first top-class boxer he has ever fought. Real boxers can use the gloves as a weapon, but knowing that is not going to help Retsu, as he has no idea how to defeat Smokey. His vision is getting hazy because of the damage he took earlier, and Smokey approaches him again. Things get bad for Retsu pretty quickly, and he feels as if he is on magic shrooms. Everything around him is melting, but as Smokey attacks him, Retsu quickly jumps back to avoid his attack. This is not his first rodeo because he is familiar with this feeling that everything around him is melting. When he was in the monastery, one of his teachers trained him on how to fight even after taking serious damage to the brain. He taught him a technique to nullify any damage to his brain using powerful spinning motion, and Retsu decides to put it to use. Smokey attacks him, but Retsu adopts a defensive stance and keeps on spinning away from his punches. He starts to recover from his hazy vision, but Smokey gets even more relentless and lands a barrage of heavy punches on him. Retsu's brain is completely rattled now, and as he falls to the ground, he thinks about the lessons from the greatest kung fu master. The master told him that if his brain is shaking, he will be at his opponent's mercy, and the only way to get out of that situation quickly enough is to shake with his brain. Retsu does just that and hits his head himself to neutralize the damage he got from Smokey's punches. He gets up just as the referee is about to end the 10 count, but just as the fight is about to resume, the round ends. He goes back to his corner, and as his coach wipes off his sweat, he asks him to give him some advice. The coach admits that he is too clueless about what is going on in the ring, and thus cannot tell him anything. Retsu is adamant about receiving some words of wisdom, and as the coach gets out of the ring, he tells him to give it his all. Suddenly, Smokey attacks him, but Retsu dodges it. He misinterprets the coach's advice about using every tool available to him and decides to follow through on it. He attacks Smokey with some fast and powerful blows and forces him to his knees. The crowd goes silent as their favorite is brought down, but Smokey gets back up with even more determination. He attacks Retsu, who quickly dodges and covers his eyes. Smokey tries to attack him even when blinded, but Retsu quickly dodges his attacks and lands another blow on him. He uses his superior mobility to jump high and hit Smokey's face constantly, while recalling lessons from one kung fu master about how jumping attacks are the most difficult to counter. Retsu uses the ring ropes as a catapult and launches himself high in the air. He spins rapidly as he approaches Smokey and knocks him down with another powerful punch. Smokey gets up, but he is nowhere near his peak anymore. Retsu thinks it is his chance to win and bombards him with punches, but then gets hit by a sudden counter. He tries to jump over him, but Smokey is ready for that and hits him halfway through his jump. Retsu is getting overwhelmed now, and he can only respect Smokey's tenacity. He uses the jump rope to launch another powerful punch at Smokey's face, but he counters with a strong hook. Retsu realizes that he must use his special move that he was saving for a special occasion now. He lands a knuckle punch near Smokey's nose, which is a critical point, and hitting it hard enough can make a person comatose and even kill them. Smokey is knocked out with that hit, and the coach leaps at Retsu to celebrate his victory over a first-class boxer. Everyone is surprised by the results as well, and then suddenly, Smokey gets up and tells Retsu that it was a great fight. He says that the last punch made him see his dead grandpa, and he had a nice little chat with him. As Smokey walks away, Retsu wants to tell him that he used a forbidden move, but then suddenly, the world heavyweight champion Bolt arrives there and lifts up his hand. While everyone thinks that Bolt is here to hype up Retsu, he seems to have some ulterior motives. Bolt and Retsu eventually fight, with Retsu emerging victorious. After the match, the press asks him questions about the match being only an exhibition and not a real match. Retsu tells them that he does not care if the match was official or unofficial, because the only thing that matters to him is the fact that he fought using the rules of boxing and used just a bit of his kung fu skills to win the battle. Kaiser awarded him the belt of the world heavyweight champion, and whether it is officially acknowledged or not, Retsu doesn't care because he won the fight fair and square. Back in Japan, Baki visits Takugawa, who has returned from the hospital. Baki wants to talk about his fight with his dad and claims that even though it is just a family dispute, there will be trouble because of it. Takugawa smiles at him and says that he's quite a bold man, unlike Yujiro. According to the old midget, it is unfair to call an earthquake or a tornado bold, and Yujiro falls into that category too. That is why he thinks that Baki is a bold man to challenge someone as strong as a natural calamity to a fight. He declares that this fight between two members of the Hanma family is the greatest event for him, and he won't let it be stopped, even if he needs to mobilize the country's military for that. Baki replies that there is no army that can stop Yujiro Hanma, but he will be the one to do it. He requests that Takugawa keep the civilians safe, and he accepts his request. After that, he visits Goki Shibukawa, a tiny martial art master who proclaims to be the ultimate embodiment of self-defense. Baki invites him to see his fight with his dad, but Goki refuses because his mastery of self-defense focuses on avoiding danger, so he doesn't want to be anywhere near Yujiro. He suddenly attacks Baki with a knife, and he easily blocks his attack. Goki commends his skills and tells him to give up on fighting with his dad. He had seen Yujiro rise to glory, and there was a time when every martial artist in the world wanted a piece of him. However, they were all defeated, and no one has challenged him in a long time now. Goki tells Baki to run away from Yujiro as there is no shame in doing that. Baki replies that he is wrong because this is not a normal fight but a dispute between a father and son, and he can't avoid it. On the other hand, Yujiro is also meeting up with his friends and talking about how excited he is for his fight with his son. He meets up with Stridum to smoke some cigars and says that he has no problem with cooking some food for his son, if he is worthy of it. The old soldier asks him if he is getting soft, but even before he can complete the sentence, Yujiro chops off his cigar and tells him to mind his words. Next, he meets up with the karate master Orochi for drinks and admits to him that he has started loving his son. He cannot stop thinking about him when awake, and even when he sleeps, he sometimes dreams about him. Orochi says that even Alabama won't accept such love, but Yujiro ignores him as he pours himself another drink. He reveals that he often has a dream recently in which Baki is so strong that he cannot harm him. Orochi asks him if there is any chance that the dream will come true, and Yujiro declares that it will not as long as he is alive. At night, Baki is cooking up some food for two people to eat because his gut feeling tells him that Yujiro is going to come to his place tonight. He is right, and Yujiro soon arrives in his home and takes a seat at the dinner table. Baki is satisfied that his dad is here to eat food with him, and he can't believe it when Yujiro bows in appreciation of the food. He had never seen him do that, and that makes him realize that he doesn't even know his dad. As Baki is lost in thought, Yujiro tells him to be mindful of what he is eating and not think of other things when he is eating. Baki is lost for words upon hearing these words of wisdom and tries to make small talk with him about the food. Yujiro talks about the chemicals present in the food and how they are basically poison, but he doesn't think that eating them is a bad thing. He declares that real men eat healthy food and poison alike and convert it into flesh and blood. Baki is awestruck by his wisdom and his elegant manners, and for the first time in his life, he is honestly proud of his dad. After they are done eating, Baki gathers all the courage in the world and asks Yujiro to wash the dishes today. His heart is beating rapidly as he turns around to see his dad's reaction and finds him right behind him with a fist. Baki thinks he is going to be smacked for saying something so ridiculous, but Yujiro simply challenges him to a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who will do the dishes. Baki can't process what is happening, and he wins the game like that too. He's happy that he can make his dad wash the dishes, but Yujiro uses his brute force and turns Baki's rock into paper by crushing it between his fingers. He wins the game according to his rules and walks out, telling his son that Yujiro Hanma's scissors can even cut rocks. Baki has no choice but to wash the dishes, but before leaving, Yujiro invites him to eat dinner with him tomorrow. He goes to a 5-star hotel the next evening and realizes that he is not dressed well enough to even enter the place. The manager of the hotel personally escorts him to a VIP room that Yujiro often uses. Baki wants to know what kind of food his dad eats, and the manager tells him that he eats everything but prefers game meat over factory meat. Suddenly, Yujiro arrives there, dressed in formals, and Baki can't believe his eyes. Yujiro lashes out at him for dressing so shabbily, and Baki says that no one ever taught him how to dress up for occasions. Yujiro shouts at him for talking back, but Baki is not ready to back down. He says that no one taught him proper manners, and the only thing he learned was to grow strong and fight. He says that if his dad had been at home and taught him something better than punching people, he would have been different. Yujiro appears furious, but he still tells Baki to take a seat. The manager brings out food for them, and Baki bonds with his dad over the meal. They are mostly quiet as they enjoy the delicious dinner, and Yujiro takes his time to tell his son how to properly dine in fancy places. Baki is amazed by his father's etiquette, so he follows whatever he does and orders a large cup of espresso instead of regular coffee. He instantly regrets it as he tastes the bitter drink, but then decides to talk about something even darker and more bitter. Baki asks Yujiro why he killed his mom, Imi, and Yujiro gets furious as he tells him not to cross his lines. Baki declares that it is his right to know this is Imi's son, and Yujiro gets even more angry at him. Baki asks him what he must do to extract that information out of him and even grabs his collar, demanding an answer. He tells his dad that they can do this the easy way or the hard way, and as Yujiro doesn't give an answer, he holds him against the glass window. The window starts cracking, and the entire building starts shaking because of the intensity of the two Hanma men. Baki thinks he has the upper hand, but then Yujiro suddenly sends him spinning like a fidget spinner and tosses him back to his seat. Yujiro is not pleased that he tried to lay a hand on him, and he also remarks that he has heard about Baki downplaying their coming match as a mere squabble between his son and a dad. However, he does not mind that and decides to teach his son a lesson. Yujiro releases his demonic aura and immediately commands Baki to get into attention position. He obeys, and then Yujiro hits him out of the window. Luckily, Baki survives by clinging to the roof, but Yujiro is not done yet. Baki feels anxious as his dad walks towards him, and he wants to run away, but he cannot react fast enough. The previous attack that sent him out of the window was a good old spank from Yujiro, and that made Baki realize that he is on a different level. Yujiro then grabs Baki's hand and says he will now receive punishment for grabbing his collar earlier. He strikes Baki's hand with great speed, and he instinctively dodges that attack. Yujiro is not happy about that, and he kicks him through the wall without targeting any of his vital organs. The other guests panic upon seeing this sight, but Yujiro politely apologizes for ruining their evening. He tells them that he is just disciplining his mannerless son, and then suddenly, Baki attacks him. Yujiro grabs his face before his attack can even reach him, and then pins him against a glass window. He talks about the age-old conflict between dads and sons as he smashes through the window and falls out of the building while still holding on to Baki. Baki freaks out as he realizes the situation, and he wonders if this is a double suicide. He knows that his dad won't ever commit suicide because he is too much of an egomaniac, and he wonders how this is going to end. Yujiro tells him to prepare for landing, and before Baki can understand what he means, they crash into a limo parked underneath them. The car is absolutely annihilated, but the two men are unharmed. Baki, however, has lost his consciousness, and Yujiro simply throws him to the side before taking off his coat and asking him to get up. Baki acts like he can't get up on his own and asks his dad to lend him a hand, and Yujiro obliges. However, Baki uses this chance to launch a surprise attack and slap Yujiro out of nowhere, but that was as useless as the Gian lasagna. Baki feels that he just slapped a giant boulder, and as he sees the look on his dad's face, he knows he is screwed. Yujiro slaps him so hard that he sends him flying into the building, and the security force stationed around him immediately takes action. The guards block Yujiro's path, but as he walks towards them, they leave their positions and run away. Yujiro walks through a glass door and finds Baki lying on the floor. He calls him a fool for not aiming at his vital spots with his slap earlier, and tells him to be ready for another round of punishment. Yujiro pinches Baki's cheek, lifts him like that, and then tosses him away, asking him if he has learned his lesson yet. Baki screams that it hurts and starts cursing Yujiro, who only laughs at him. He is determined not to aim for his dad's vital spots because this is not a fight, but just a squabble between a father and son. Baki charges at Yujiro and shoots his shoes at him before attacking him with a high kick. Yujiro simply disbalances him with a little nudge, and Baki spins around to counterattack. However, Yujiro has already predicted his move, and he lightly hits Baki on the forehead, which is enough to make him half unconscious. Yujiro then kicks him in the gut and sends him flying, and Baki feels weak and helpless in front of his dad. He crashes into the escalator, and then Yujiro tells him that the next move he is going to use is going to be very painful. He says that it is a move used by women, and Baki knows exactly what he is talking about. He knows that the move is called Whip Strike that targets only the skin. It has low lethality, but it deals an awful lot of pain, and he fears taking a hit from the strongest man. Yujiro lets his body loose and lands the most powerful slap in history on Baki's back, leaving a permanent palm print there. Baki screams out because he has never felt pain like this before. To make him learn his lesson even more intensely, Yujiro attacks him with another slap. Baki can only scream as he limps around because his body has no tolerance for pain despite its strength. To get back at Yujiro, Baki uses the slap on him too, hoping to give him a taste of his own medicine. However, as he looks at Yujiro, he is lost for words. He looks like all his skin has been stripped away and his muscles and nerves are bulging out all over his body. The moment Yujiro was hit by the slap, he instantly tightened all the muscles in his body to disperse the pain to a wide area instead of just the place where he got slapped. He then returns to his normal self, and Baki has no idea what can hurt his dad after this. Yujiro then tells him to aim for his vitals and challenges him to a fair fight. Baki takes a fighting stance, and so does Yujiro. Suddenly, they hear Takugawa's voice, who came running to the site along with the Prime Minister after hearing about the fight. He cheers on Baki, telling him to fight to his heart's content because all the civilians in the area have been evacuated. The old midget tells Baki that he has permission to demolish the entire hotel if he needs to beat his dad, and Baki just thanks him. With that, he charges at Yujiro but gets smashed into the wall just like what happened during his image training before. Baki is amazed at this, but then Yujiro tells him to stop playing around and get serious. He can tell that Baki has not been using his real strength till now, and he practically requests that he show his dad what he is made of. Baki decides to oblige and starts focusing on loosening all his muscles, joints, and organs in his body to unleash his cockroach dash. He imagines his body turning into liquid and then into vapor, and then bursts forth at his top speed instantly. He tackles Yujiro at a speed of over 150 miles per hour and drags him across the floor. Yujiro tries to apply brakes to a window using his feet, but Baki powers through and keeps on dragging him along. They finally stop when a wall comes in the way, and Yujiro is impressed that despite running over countless glass shards, Baki's feet have not been injured. Suddenly, Baki moves away from him and then sends him crashing into the wall with a strong kick. He then drops and kicks Yujiro with enough power to send him across the hall, destroying everything in his path. Baki then rushes towards him again, and Yujiro acknowledges his great skill. He says that the skill he used to achieve an explosive burst of speed was something that surpassed his expectations. He claims that the teacher who taught him this move is great, and he then simply pushes him back before sending him out of the building with a suplex. As Baki falls to the ground, he almost gets blown away by the shockwave generated by the cheering crowd. They recognize Baki, but they are not here for him, but for his dad. Everyone in the crowd, including both men and women, gets wetter than the Amazon rainforest as they catch a glimpse of Yujiro, and he is left stumped to see people cheering on him. It all started with a single news report about the military arriving to barricade a hotel where a father and son were fighting. Everyone who had the least bit of interest in fighting and martial arts immediately knew which father and son the news mentioned. The highly anticipated fight between the two Hanma men had started, and no one wanted to miss it. Everyone rushed to the hotel, and while Baki is just slightly inconvenienced by it, Yujiro's brain has stopped braining. He couldn't understand how so many people could gather around the hotel so quickly, and the strange atmosphere caused by all this attention made him a bit nervous. Yujiro jumps down and tells Baki that they should get out of here because they have fought enough for the night. However, Baki is not going anywhere. He taunts Yujiro, asking if he is embarrassed to fight in front of so many people because he fears he will lose. His words hit the spot, and as Yujiro is getting triggered, Baki wastes no time in unleashing his cockroach dash at him again. He lands 3 consecutive hits on him and returns to his position before anyone in the crowd can even notice. Some people notice a sonic boom and dust clouds, but they think that the fight has not yet started. Despite being the one to attack, Baki has also taken some damage to his hands and feet. Yujiro admits that he is right, and since the fight has started, it will not stop until both of them agree to end it. He then wipes blood from his mouth and remarks that no one has been able to make him bleed in many years. Yujiro is even more excited to fight Baki now, who is wondering if his dad let him hit him on purpose. Nevertheless, he begins to relax his body for another cockroach dash, but this time, Yujiro stops him even before he takes a single step. He tells Baki that it is foolish to use the same move on him twice, and then slaps him away into the crowd. The slap to his face was so powerful that Baki couldn't stop crying, but despite that, he jumped up and tried to hit Yujiro, only to be slapped in the same manner again. Yujiro slams him to the ground, and Baki gets up, trying to control his tears. He tries to fight back, but the result is the same, and he gets slapped once again. The world starts swirling before his eyes, and Baki realizes that he is not strong enough to treat Yujiro as his dad in a fight, and he must face him like a sworn enemy. He gets up and squirts an unholy amount of blood from his nostrils before declaring that he is ready for round 2. With adrenaline pumping in his veins, Baki's bleeding stops. He leaps at Yujiro and aims for his balls, but he stops him. Baki keeps on trying to land a hit at him, but Yujiro blocks all his attacks easily. Both of them keep smiling while exchanging blows, and it feels like they are just playing with each other. They get ready to catch a breath, and Yujiro is satisfied with Baki's performance because his hands have started trembling after blocking his powerful attacks. Suddenly, Baki feels someone watching him, and he realizes that it is his caveman friend Pickle, who has come here to watch him fight. Baki wants to show him a good fight and takes the stance of a Triceratops, just as he did in his fight with Pickle. He is certain that even in the dark, Pickle will be able to see him clearly. However, his imitation is so spot on that everyone present in the crowd can see the image of a Triceratops behind him. No one can believe their eyes, and in the eyes of Yujiro, Baki has vanished and only a Triceratops stands in front of him. He had been a great dinosaur nerd his entire life, and even after becoming the world's strongest man, he often fantasized about the strength of dinosaurs. So this chance was like his dream coming true, and he is ready to face the imaginary beast in front of him. Baki charges at Yujiro, demonstrating power equal to that of a real Triceratops, and pushes him back effortlessly. He even pushes back a van and turns it over before coming to a stop. Yujiro is forced to admit his son's strength, and he believes that power cannot come just from his tiny frame. He then asks Baki to show him the form that is even stronger than a triceratops. He says that like various styles of kung fu, which take inspiration from animals, Baki is doing the same, but with a dinosaur. However, at the end of the day, it is just an imitation and not the real deal. Baki asks him what he means, and Yujiro starts imitating the moves of various creatures. He wonders what his dad is doing, and then Yujiro laughs at him, saying that he is just making things up. He then flexes his muscles to rip apart his shirt, and suddenly, a bright light is released from his body. Everyone feels the wave of light passing through them, and Baki finally realizes what his dad is trying to show him. He imitated the strongest creature in the history of the Earth, and that was no one else but himself. The light everyone just saw was an image of Yujiro, and he is not going to stop there. He punches and kicks the air, releasing bursts of light that amaze Baki and the crowd alike. Baki realizes that his dad really is the strongest being on Earth, and not only are his moves powerful, they are beautiful too. Yujiro asks him what he thinks of his imitation of the strongest being, and Baki replies that it is bound to be perfect. Yujiro is pleased, but then Baki tells him that his form was beautiful, but its true value can only be found out in a battle. They approach each other, and Baki instantly disbalances Yujiro with a quick jab, almost making him kiss the ground. Luckily, Yujiro stopped before falling completely, and he praises Baki because he never thought that he could pull off a move like that. In the brief interval Yujiro was thinking about his first move, Baki hit him and almost knocked him down. Yujiro calls in close and says he wants to pat his head, but Baki is not buying it. He thinks it is some sort of cheap trick, but as his dad says that he just wants to praise his son, Baki starts tearing up. This makes him realize that Yujiro really wants to pat his head, but he still doesn't approach him as they are in the middle of the fight. Yujiro says that there is nothing wrong with admiring his son for his accomplishments, and suddenly, Baki feels a delightful pain in his chest. In his 18 years of existence, he had never once been praised by his dad, so now that he receives his praise, he is overwhelmed by feelings of joy and pride. Baki cannot stop crying as he accepts his dad's words, and at this point, he doesn't even care if it is a trap. However, just as Yujiro's hand is about to touch him, he moves away because he wants to end this fight before anything else. He declares that better time to find out who is the strongest man on Earth will never come, and Yujiro decides to show him what true strength is. He moves too fast for Baki to notice and tightly holds him. Baki is in pain because of his tight grip, but he cannot move. Yujiro declares that now he will show him true strength by patting his head against his will. As Yujiro pats his head, Baki realizes that the essence of strength is to get what you want. He flails to get out of his dad's grip, but it is useless, so he tries kicking him. Yujiro simply moves his head in the way of the kick, and Baki starts bleeding again. Yujiro wipes off his blood and sucks it like barbecue sauce before telling his son that he can kill him or he can love him as he wants, and it doesn't matter what he wants. He then sends Baki spinning like a bee blade, telling him that this is what true strength means. Baki somehow manages to land gracefully, but the next instant, he is hit by a powerful kick from Yujiro. He is sent flying, and then Yujiro attacks him again with his full power. Baki can barely breathe after taking those hits, and as he lays panting on the ground, Yujiro says that he is a loser after all. He wonders how to finish him when he suddenly feels a chill and turns around to see that Pickle has arrived to face him. Yujiro laughs at seeing the caveman and decides to take on him next, but then suddenly Baki punches Pickle and breaks his teeth. The caveman is furious, but as he sees Baki's rage and jealousy, he realizes that it is best for him to not interfere in his fight. He learns his manners just after losing one tooth and quietly sits with the crowd to watch the fight. Baki faces Yujiro again, who tells him that he was lucky that his caveman friend intervened at the right time. They rush at each other, and in an instant, Baki is on the ground. He had anticipated Yujiro's attack and was ready to block it, but Yujiro realized that he was ready, so he changed his move at the last moment and knocked him out. He tries to finish him with a kick, but Baki moves out of his range quickly. He has his hands in his pocket as he tells his dad that he cannot win this battle from the start, so he's going to do what it takes to win. That is why he wants to get creative, and he apologizes to his dad for that. Yujiro doesn't mind it, and he approaches Baki to accept his challenge. He puts his hands in his pocket too, deciding to see who is the stronger one through a test of their reaction speed. He declares that it will just be like the old samurai or cowboy movies, and the one who is faster to draw their weapon and land a strike will win. Yujiro is confident that he will end the battle with one attack, and Baki tells him to try. Both of them stare intently at each other with their hands in their pockets, waiting for the correct time to attack each other. However, Yujiro quickly gets bored of the game of judging the opponent's trigger moment and decides to change the rules. He declares that he will count down from 5, and with each number, he will bend one finger. As the countdown reaches 0 and he forms a fist, he will attack Baki, and if he is fast enough, he must strike him first. Baki hasn't even agreed to this, but Yujiro starts the countdown anyway. As soon as Yujiro reaches 0 and makes a fist, Baki reacts instantly and lowers his body to draw his hands as quickly as he can. However, he cannot attack Yujiro because he is too confused by his slow-looking punch. Just as the slow fist touches Baki, it turns into a speed punch, but before it can toss him away, Baki launches his counterattack. He attacks Yujiro with both his legs and grips his neck before slamming him onto the ground and placing him in a chokehold armbar. Baki is overwhelmed by what he just accomplished because he has a clear upper hand in the battle now. He asks his dad how he feels being crushed under his knee, and when he doesn't answer, he tells him to get a grip because this is not how the fight is supposed to end. Yujiro gestures that he is okay and then lifts his free arm up, confusing Baki about his next move. He then punches the asphalt below them and digs through it to attack Baki from below. Baki has literally pissed his pants, but he has still not given up on winning this fight. He attacks Yujiro again, ready to use any trick he can to win. However, Yujiro counters his attack and kicks him away, but Baki safely lands on his feet. Yujiro says that it is enough, and he looks extremely proud of his son despite the fact that he just pissed off his pants. He declares that the Hanma DNA inside Baki is still dormant, and it won't awaken unless it is given a nice shock. He takes his unique stance, flexing the muscles on his back that look like a demon's face. Yujiro tells Baki that he was the first one to give him the thrill of living, and that is why he will awaken his true potential. He kicks him with all his might and sends him flying. Baki hits a van and Yujiro hits him with a devastating punch. He keeps hitting him with powerful blows and Baki pisses himself again. As he falls to the ground after that, pleasure chemicals called endorphins release inside his brain, making him forget about the pain and giving him the strength to rise up again. He admits that he gave it his all, but that was not enough to take down his dad, so he should just give up for now. However, Yujiro is standing right in front of him, asking him if he wants to continue. As Baki talks about how proud he is that his dad is the strongest man in the world, Yujiro notices something that scares the shit out of him. Baki wonders what is going on and turns around to see the smug ghost of a broad and muscular man. Yujiro calls the ghost Yujiro Hanma, his dad, and asks him if he lost his way to hell or something. The ghost of Yujiro is unlike anything else, and he laughs at the fight between two members of his family. He tells Baki that if he wants to, he can really defeat Yujiro right away. Only the warriors present in the crowd, including Orochi, Oliver, and Pickle, can see him, as well as Takugawa, who remarks that Yujiro was a monster who defeated America before his son Yujiro did the same. He tells the Prime Minister a story of the Second World War, in which the American army used thousands of tons of explosives on a tiny island over a period of 6 months. The island was bombarded from the sea and the sky to kill only one man, Yujiro Hanma. However, even after the island was destroyed, Yujiro was unharmed and killed the soldiers that came to find his corpse after the bombing. The operations commander was furious at this failure, and he sought permission to use an atom bomb on the tiny island. Before he could get permission, Yujiro paid his ship a visit and killed him at night. Only one soldier was on patrol that day, and he only saw the muscles on Yuchiro's back that looked like a demon before noticing that his commander was dead. Everyone quickly gathered around their commander's corpse, wondering what could put his head through a 1-foot-thick piece of wood. Yujiro made his appearance just as they asked this question, and the 2,000 soldiers on the ship were so terrified of him that they immediately dove into the sea to escape. That is how Yujiro conquered an American warship in just a few minutes and became the first person to defeat America. In the meantime, Yuchiro's ghost has vanished after awakening the dormant memories of Yujiro. Yujiro tells Baki that he and his dad were polar opposites in everything, from their outlook on life to the techniques they used. However, there was one technique that Yujiro possessed that even Yujiro was proud of. He suddenly lifts Baki in his arms as he tells him that now he will experience the technique named dress. Yujiro swings Baki around like he is a nunchuck and slams him hard enough to make him bleed. He doesn't stop at that and keeps on swinging Baki around so fast that he loses his sense of time. Because of the high centrifugal force, all this blood accumulates in his head and starts coming out of all the openings in his head. The blood density in his eyes increases so much that Baki sees everything red. Yujiro keeps on swinging him with such intensity that the people near them run away in fear that they will get hit if the ogre loses his grip. Takugawa can clearly see Yujiro wearing an invisible dress made by following Baki's movement, and Oliver realizes that since Baki is being used as a nunchuck, what comes next won't be pleasant for him. After Yujiro is done swinging Baki around, he tells him to listen to him and defend himself because he is going to slam him into a van next. He swings around his son as a weapon and hits the van, telling him not to die. Yujiro is confident that his son is strong enough to handle this level of beating, and he is correct. Baki suddenly gets a grip over himself, and he can successfully destroy the van while defending himself and even dodge the pieces of debris. He finally stands on his feet after that, feeling completely recovered. Yujiro asks him if he is going to keep holding his hand forever, and Baki tells him that he has a gift for him because he showed him something really special. Yujiro opens his fist and finds that Baki has made a doll using the scraps of the van while he was being used to hit it. Yujiro can't believe it and then remarks that something is not right. When he was using Baki to hit the van, he didn't feel the impact he was hoping for and realized that he was in complete control of his body even then. He can't believe it, and then Baki thanks him for everything he has given him and apologizes because he made a terrible doll. They suddenly start fighting again, and now Baki can use the power of the Hanma blood flowing through his veins. He lands consecutive strikes on Yujiro without being hit even once. As Yujiro is getting his ass whooped, he boards the nostalgia train. He recalls how he reached the pinnacle of martial arts and became untouchable. There was nothing left for him to achieve, and his life was filled with boredom. Yujiro thinks that no one can understand how worthless it is to live a life without challenges and troubles. And then he is brought back to reality when Baki hits him with a Ballbuster 3000. Yujiro grabs his crotch in pain, and then Baki lands a few more hits at him before challenging him to attack next. He dodges all of Yujiro's attacks and then knocks him to the ground with a heel kick. Despite that, Yujiro is not harmed, and he does a handstand before jumping back to his feet. He's glad to have a son like Baki and calls him a true Hanma. Baki is glad to hear that, and he lets his instincts take over as he rushes at Yujiro with an improvised cockroach rush. He sends his dad flying with a punch, and then asks him if he is still feeling bored. Yujiro tells him that he was so bored that he traveled all over the world and fought powerful warriors and beasts, criminals and armies, but he never knew that the one to relieve his boredom would be the one nut he busted 18 years ago. As the father and son are getting sentimental about their fight, Becky's girlfriend Kozu suddenly arrives there. He asks why she is here, and she tells him that she got bored of their fight on TV because there is a 2-page dialogue after each punch they throw. She tells Baki to take this fight seriously, and even though he is taken aback, he tells her that it is not a fight but a squabble between a father and son. He says that they have the right to talk and get sentimental in between their fights. On top of that, the techniques they used today were so deadly that they could not think of using them against anyone whose strength they didn't trust. He knows that Kazu realizes that as well, and that is why she wants them to stop fighting because they love each other. Before Baki can say anything else, Yujiro attacks him, and they start fighting again. Baki dodges his attack and then uses his momentum against him to flip him over with a flick of his fingers. Yujiro reacts quickly and changes his direction midair to kick Baki, but he blocks it. As the father and son engage in a battle that surpasses the limit of human ability, Baki wants to tell his girlfriend that they are having the time of their lives fighting each other, and that is why they cannot stop. Yujiro eventually yeets Baki across the road, and then he turns to Kozu, who is nervously standing in front of him. Yujiro tells her that Baki has grown really strong, and he believes that her constant love and support played a great role in that. He bows to her as he thanks her, and then tells her to get out of the way since a battlefield is no place for a woman. Baki tells Kozu the same thing, but she refuses to budge from her place. The men tell her to suit herself as they attack each other again, and even though Kozu cries and screams, she doesn't move from her place at all. Baki and Yujiro keep on hitting each other, and everyone watching them realizes that their fight is about to come to an end soon. After exchanging a few blows, Baki leaps on top of Yujiro and tries to strangle and twist his neck, but he overwhelms him with sheer power. Baki is left sitting on his dad's shoulder like he is 5, and he is happy to live the childhood that he never had. Yujiro is happy too, and as he walks away from the crowd, he tells his son that it is about time to end it. Baki gets down from his back and hits him with a suplex, but Yujiro quickly gets up. He is unfazed after taking a few blows, but no matter how much fun he is having, he thinks that it is time to end it now. He claps Baki's face between his palms and bursts his eardrums, just like he did to his mom in the past. Yujiro takes his son's face in his hands as he tells him to listen to him even though his eardrums have been ruptured, because it is the conclusion of their fight. He takes Baki's hand in his and teaches him to make a fist. That takes Baki down the memory lane, and he recalls his first lesson with his dad. Yujiro told the young Baki that the human fist is the most versatile tool as well as the greatest weapon. That day, he taught him how to make a fist just like he is doing now, and remembering that lesson, Baki takes his stance. Both the father and son decide to abandon their defense completely and charge each other to settle it with a good old slugfest. They hit each other right in the face, and the sound of the hits is so loud that everyone is forced to close their ears. Baki and Yujiro have similar reactions to being punched in the face, and they attack each other again with the same intensity. They don't bother to hide their weak points or avoid any fatal hits because their fight is no longer a combat sport or street fight, but a competition of their manliness. They keep hitting each other with all they have and taking hits like real men. As they keep on fighting, numerous people from other countries arrive at the scene and start praying to Yujiro. The crowd is getting more excited with each punch, and the martial artists present they are impatient to see the end of this fight as well. Long ago, at the peak of his youth, Yujiro stood up in between the weak masses and the powerful armies that sought to harass them. It was for no noble reason, but simply because he found it his calling to face powerful enemies. So he destroyed entire armies barehanded and soon got recognized by the USA as the strongest human on Earth. The presidents swore their friendship to him with their hands on the Bible and paid large sums of money in exchange for favors. Like this, Yujiro became a godlike figure for the poor and weak people whom he once protected, and that is why they were here to see his greatest fight ever. The crowd slowly starts moving towards the place where Baki and Yujiro are throwing punches at each other. Their fight is broadcast live all over Japan, and martial artists like Katsumi and Goki, who are watching it from their homes, wonder who they should pray for. Yujiro's other son, Baki Hanma, is jealous of his younger brother because he wants to fight his dad like this too. Yujiro soon gives up punching back and stands with his arms open to welcome attacks from Baki. Baki, on the other hand, feels like he has lost the ability to see and hear, and the only thing he can feel is his punches landing on his dad's body. Suddenly, Yujiro hugs him tightly and crushes his ribs just like he did with his mother. Baki can only think how amazing his dad is as Yujiro lets him fall to the ground and then loses consciousness. Yujiro uses his sharp senses to perform a quick x-ray on his son and finds that all the bones in his skull are fractured. His teeth are damaged too, along with his eardrums. His backbone has severe cracks too, and 6 of his ribs are broken. The bones in his hands and feet are relatively better, suffering only minor damage. As for his muscles and organs, there are several places where Baki's body is bleeding internally. Yujiro scratches his head as he tells his son that this is enough for today. He starts walking away, and the crowd quickly parts to give him the way. One by one, men start bowing down to him, and as Yujiro is satisfied with how he spent the evening, he feels a kick to his ear. He turns around to see that Baki is still struggling to get up, and he realizes what it was that hit him earlier. Baki's fighting spirit takes shape and attacks Yujiro constantly, until he tells him that it is enough. Then, out of nowhere, Yujiro does a cutting action, and the dumbfounded crowd clearly sees him cutting invisible tofu and vegetables and stirring invisible soup in an invisible pan. He tells Baki to get up as it is mealtime, and he gets back on his feet as if he has done no damage at all. The father and son duo sit down to share an imaginary meal on an imaginary table. Neither they need meds or I do. The crowd stares at them in disbelief because after beating each other to an inch of their lives, they are sitting down in harmony. Baki drinks the soup and tells Yujiro that it is a bit too salty. He asks him to taste it, but Yujiro refuses, saying that it is just make-believe at the end of the day and won't taste like anything. On hearing this, Baki places the imaginary bowl on the imaginary table and flips it. Everyone sees the imaginary soup being spilled, but as soon as Yujiro holds it, it vanishes. Baki taunts him that he got saved from his horrible cooking, and rather than getting angry, Yujiro says that he is right because the soup was indeed too salty. He admits that he was lying to save face, and Baki flipped the table to save him from being humiliated in front of everyone. Yujiro then declares that the essence of strength is to achieve one's goals, and Baki achieved his goals by making the strongest man in the world cook something for him, even though it was imaginary. And for that, he bestows upon Baki the title of the strongest man in the world. The crowd goes crazy on hearing this, but Baki gets up and tells his dad that whoever has his head higher after a fight wins. It was Yujiro who had his head higher as he walked away, and that is why Baki accepts his defeat. However, this was because Baki still cannot hear, and he has no idea that his dad just acknowledged him as the strongest man in the world. The crowd starts cheering on them because the father handed over the title of the world's strongest man to his son, and the son handed over his victory to his father. Takegawa arrives at the scene to officially declare the end of the fight, and with one glance at his body, Yujiro can tell that his cancer got miraculously cured because of seeing their fight. With that, Baki and Yujiro shake hands, ending their feud once and for all. If you like this video, you would love this cursed weak guy who ends up becoming the strongest wizard alive.